Now, we are just weeks away from the release of Ironheart as a show on Disney Plus on June 24th. We know that this series in particular is something that both Marvel Studios and the Disney company are in pure panic mode over for various reasons. Number one, we know that they kept this thing on the shelf for close to 3 years for obvious reasons. It is basically a series that is DOA. It's not going to work at all in the long form for Disney/Marvel. If anything, it's only going to create more division within the Marvel Cinematic Universe and within the fandom itself. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So again, June 24th is going to be a very interesting date because that is the very day in which all 3 episodes, or should I say, the first half of the Ironheart series, all 3 episodes of the first half, will drop on Disney Plus, and followed by that, you're going to have single episodes on a weekly basis. So this is going to make its way all the way into July and getting closer to the Fantastic Four First Steps film on July 25th, which is something also that Kevin Feige and Bob Iger are concerned about on whether or not that's going to hinder the success of that film. But focusing on everything else, we know that the star of the series, the star of the actual show, Ironheart, Dominique Thorne, is having a very troublesome time accepting the facts here that Disney is going through a ton of emergency meetings over Ironheart. They are going through a ton of revisions toward the series for obvious reasons. And this is exactly why. This is essentially the Acolyte 2.0 as far as I'm concerned, and ironically it's releasing around the same exact time that the Acolyte did in 2024, right around June. So what's interesting here is that with both the Disney company and Marvel Studios now frightened over the Ironheart backlash that went viral ever since they dropped the first official trailer, one significant development going on now involves more to do with the actress of Ironheart, Dominique Thorne, who recently got in trouble at Marvel Studios after creating tons of drama with both Disney executives and Marvel producers. Now, this comes in the midst of how Dominique Thorne recently got involved in several arguments with Marvel Studios after they decided to scrub over 7 scenes featuring Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, that were best described by screeners that took part in a test screening as unwatchable. Now, Dominique Thorne, we all know that she is very much one that is despising the fandom right now. She really is not having it at all. She's beginning to actually lose it when it comes to the fandom, when it comes to Marvel fans. It turns out that the Ironheart 3rd test screening failed miserably across the board due to 3 scenes in particular that actually pushed the typical Disney agenda, one of which involved Riri Williams going on a rant about privilege and those high up the ladder that actually are lathered in wealth. This is where she briefly brings up Tony Stark and belittles him during an argument that she has with Alden Ehrenreich's character Joe, labeling Stark as a narcissist that doesn't deserve his wealth or his suits, a line of dialogue that dramatically shifted away from pages in the 2016 comic that Disney decided to do at last minute for the series. Screeners labeled this sequence of Ironheart as one of the worst ways to reference Tony Stark. To be exact, this was for episode 3, roughly halfway through the episode, where she first meets Alden's character Joe. Another scene that is also under fire from screeners involved yet another moment where Riri Williams mentions her pronouns as she/her to Alden's character and even brings up LGBTQ rights. Screeners called this out to Marvel Studios as way too forced and intense, and even outperforming the nonsense that came from She-Hulk. Now, you guys may recall that She-Hulk, the cringe disaster that it was, this is already sounding like it's going to actually dethrone She-Hulk as the cringiest Marvel creation yet. The final scene that was heavily criticized by screeners, get this, for the 3rd screening, that was actually called out involved a moment in episode 5 during the opening sequence where her new suit is finally complete, where she becomes arrogant against her new foe. There is a line of dialogue where this new villain named Hood tells Riri that she is no Tony Stark, that she is no Iron Man. This is where a line is dropped by Riri that was not featured in the comics, where she snaps back at Hood and delivers, "You're right, I am no Tony Stark, I am no Iron Man, I am everything he failed to become." Now guys, let me just stop right here for one moment. The fact that the only references that we are getting of Tony Stark so far are belittling the character and obviously putting the character down. Now, we didn't really see this to the extent in the 2016 comic per se like this. This just goes to show you that Disney changed things up on purpose just for the sake of the show, because they know it would actually, obviously, serve as a message, serve as an agenda, and to actually ruin a beloved character. Look, we've seen this many times before where they belittle characters, where they destroy characters' legacies, much like how they did with Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, much like how they did with, of course, Indiana Jones and Indy 5. The list goes on. And whether or not these scenes remain intact for the final iteration of Ironheart before it drops on the 24th is going to be very interesting, because we know that a lot of these scenes, much like Fantastic Four, actually are intertwined in a very important way to scenes either before or after it debuts. And that's another thing to really consider now, is that they're rearranging scenes, they're trying to find ways to actually cut out specific sequences to salvage the show. I don't think anything is going to work. I don't think anything is going to actually allow them to fix this dumpster fire. Let's just actually call it what it is. This series is about a dumpster diver, and it's going to be a dumpster fire, alright? So overall, Riri Williams, alright, a character that nobody asked for, a character which, by the way, was only created back in 2016 by Disney, and who in the world asked for a show that would be based on Ironheart is beyond me. Now, one thing about this further is that the dialogue was best described as cringy as far as the presentation, the music in the background, and the line delivery altogether, that screeners saw it as just another opportunity to belittle Tony Stark toward the end of the series. A scene that many screeners described would cause them to check out prematurely from the show. Already Marvel and Disney are figuring out ways to delete these scenes, which is why Dominique Thorne, who plays Riri, has been involved in serious arguments with Marvel producers, including Marvel boss Kevin Feige, for deciding to work with Disney on rearranging the scenes. And that's another thing. Kevin Feige is beginning to actually say, what can we do to actually address the situation? What can we do to fix this mess? And I think that there's really just no way of getting out of this, because Ironheart really is a show from like 3 years ago, technically speaking. It's been on the shelf for like 2.5 years. They were hiding this series as much as possible, hence why they only dropped a trailer just recently. One trailer, by the way, about a month and change before the actual release date. And that is very much a red flag coming from Marvel. If anything, you would have dropped at least, at minimum, a trailer 3 months, maybe 4 months maximum before the release of the series. And they didn't do that. They refused to do that. And they had a trailer on hand. It's been done for a very long time, and they refused to debut it until just recently. So again, about this series, the fact that it is really going all in on belittling Tony Stark / Iron Man, calling him out as a narcissist and all of this other nonsense, when in reality, by the way, guys, this takes place after his sacrifice in Endgame. This takes place well after that. And that really should not belong in a show that takes place after Tony Stark's sacrifice. So, the character changed over time, Tony Stark, right? We all know that he actually did make the ultimate sacrifice, and I'm really wondering if they're even going to mention that in the Ironheart series. But overall, I would like to hear what you all have to say about this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.